Today's adventure takes us to Homer Glen, Illinois, and to Brooks Cemetery. And you can see behind me the original gate and entrance to this cemetery, no longer in use, but it's beautiful and it's not damaged at all, which is remarkable. This cemetery has over 1,100 graves, over 200 years old, goes back to about 1815. A lot of Civil War soldiers buried here. Remarkable old cemetery. So come join me as we explore Brooks Cemetery. All right, guys, we are in Brooks Cemetery, and before we start looking at tombstones, I just have to show you this view. There's the original gate. It says Brooks on it. Look at that. It sits high on this hill. Let's go investigate this original gate a little bit more. No longer in use. You cannot get in this way any longer, but just beautiful. Over 200 years ago, you can imagine first person being buried here, just overlooking fields and farms. Let's take a look at this gate. It's beautiful. Look at that. Look at this. Look at this ironwork here. I mean, obviously done by hand. And look at this fence. Just a beautiful fence. Yeah, I purposely came here early. It's like 7:30 on a Sunday morning. Traffic already pretty heavy, surprisingly. I mean, it's not like I'm in the middle of a city. All right, I'm going to head all the way to the back of the cemetery because I think that's where the older tombstones are. Very nice, very old obelisk here. James is the name. Gooding, it looks like. Died sometime March 25th, 1840s. Must be his, not his wife, a wife of somebody, Carolyn, wife of Edward. Died, looks like 1846. We have old mixed in with new. Here's an old one here that it looks like they tried to repair at one point in time, but it's so old that it's broken again. Another old one. Lucy, it looks like, for the name on that one. And then we have tombstones in here. Let me check this out. Yeah, there's look at this, guys. There's a tombstone right there. And right there's a piece of one. Unfortunately, there's a tree there. I don't know why they didn't cut that down. And then here's a tombstone in the ground. Unfortunately, it fell face up, and it fell a long time ago. And the inscription on that one is no longer readable. Beautiful summer morning here in Homer Glen, Illinois. We have, these appear to be the same, but they're across from each other. Not able to read that. And you can see how these two tombstones were on either side. This was the original path or walkway of the cemetery. And you can see there in the distance is the front gate, the old front gate of the cemetery, the original front gate of the cemetery. And this used to be the path to come up into the cemetery. So you can imagine back in the day, horse-drawn hearse would come up this way through those gates. Up this path, it was probably perhaps a stone or dirt path back in the day. And they'd come up here in a funeral procession and bury their loved ones. That path is no longer. This is still in really good shape. Hannah, wife of A.D. Peck, 1879 for Hannah. That's an interesting name. Arminius, it looks like. A-R-M-E-N-I-U-S, Peck, 1892. Obviously the Peck monument. Here's Betsy, wife of A.D. Peck. A.D. Peck looks like he had several wives. Betsy died very young. She was, if I do the math right, 23 years old when she died. And whenever I see that, whenever I see a woman dying that young, I assume, and I could be wrong, it's usually childbirth. Here's Janine, daughter of A.D. and H.H. Peck, 1850 to 1864. Fortunately, you see that a lot with children dying before they reach adulthood. Here we have another Lucy. It says Lucy, wife of, and that's pretty much all you can see, as the rest of it's buried. Another Lucy, wife of something Peck, died 1848. There's just a lot of old tombstones in here. As I said in intro, over 1,000 graves, still an active cemetery. We see Emily there. It's like Mary on this one. They must have been related, as the tombstones are very similar. They've almost broken in the same spot as well. It's a nice old one here amongst the trees. Let's see, is this a zinky? No, this is a stone one. Great stonework though. I'm going to get a closer view of this one. Look at that. That's beautiful. You can see up here there is some design in here. That's really a beautiful tombstone. Is there a name on it? There is a name on this side. W-E-I-R, it looks like. Weir. There's an inscription there, which can't be read anymore. In memory of, is that Donald, perhaps? Donald, it looks like. Beautiful, beautiful marker. Just great. As I get out of here, as I smack my head on these berry trees, you can see the berries here. So does anyone know if these berries are edible or not? I'm not going to try it, but they look good. Thousands of berries on this tree. All right, let's walk toward the back a little bit here. Just lots of tombstones to look at today. Now, I do see that some people have put flags in PVC pipes. So I assume that those flags mean that the person buried here was a veteran of some sort. As you can see, this tombstone is no longer readable. But let me see. There's a more modern one here. I wonder if this is Brown as a name. Died 1837. Rhoda, wife of Orrin Brown, died December 22nd, 1837. Only 24 years of age. So I wonder if this is the Browns here on either side. And this, a child So that leads me to believe that maybe Rhoda, she died young, 24 years of age, and then you see a child tombstone here. So maybe, unfortunately, maybe mother and baby died during childbirth, which was common back then. Let's see what we have here. Albert, it looks like on that. Kind of hard to see. There is an American flag there, so maybe Albert was a veteran. A lot of veterans in these old cemeteries. It really amazes me how many Civil War soldiers there were. You know, kind of brings it home when you look in these old cemeteries and you just see the amount of Civil War soldiers. It's a nice obelisk over here. Derby is the name on this one. Probably about 7 feet tall. Let's see if there's any other identifiable markings on this. I don't see any. Either they've worn off or they're not. And, oh, there are some on this side. There's some on this side. Eliza, wife of somebody. I'm assuming that's Derby. I see an 8 there. Yeah, I can't really read it too much, which is such a shame. You know, it's kind of lost to history, so hopefully somebody had this documented prior to that inscription being worn away by Mother Nature. This cemetery is located now in the middle of a residential neighborhood, which I guess is good and bad. I assume there isn't a whole lot of vandalism here because it is surrounded by houses. It'd be a little risky for idiots to come in here and start vandalizing when there's so many eyes on this place. Amongst this group of trees are a number of tombstones. Mary's the name on this one. Barely make out the name, but I can make out Mary, and that's pretty much the only thing. But in the middle of this tree cluster, or weed cluster, or whatever it is, there is a monument. Let's see if we can see it. It's a tall one. It's in great shape. You see it there? J.H. Teddens. Let's get a little closer. Oh, there's a placard on there too. Born 1833, died 1899. Oh boy. All right, guys. I'm going to try to see if we can see this placard. I don't know if I can get in here. Here we go. J.H. Teddens. Baby Zola. Another baby. George. Maria. Mary. Just lists names of the family members that are probably in this plot here. That's a rather newer plaque, so this growth must have occurred rather quickly, but a very nice marker. Very nice. Then we have one in the ground here. Let's see if we can read this one. Fritz Willers. That's a great name, isn't it? Fritz Willers. 1851 to 1874. You see the handshake there. We did have some rain last night, so that's a little filled with water, which makes it better to see, actually. We got a little grouping of weeds and plants here. Wonder if there's a monument in there somewhere. Very dense. You can't tell. You cannot tell. This one's pretty remarkable. Not only is it in the ground, it's been in the ground for a while. This is huge, and it's still readable. Adam, it looks like. Kettering, born January 30th, 1780. Died, looks like September 3rd, 1852. It's in remarkable condition. I mean, some really deep inscriptions there to help with reading that. And we have the Kettering Monument here. Eliza, wife of John Kettering, she died. When did she die? She was born 1811. Looks like she died around 18. It's kind of hard to read. Can't tell if it's a 5 or a 7. I see George Henry there. You can see the finial has fallen off of it. So one nice thing about this, there isn't much in terms of vandalism. It just seems like natural decay, which is nice. John Kettering, 1812 to 1860. And there was inscription at the bottom, an epitaph. Unable to read that at this point in time. We have some large evergreen trees here with a monument in the middle. Of course, I'm on the back side of that monument. Let me walk around and see if we're able to read that. Here we go. Macaulay's the name. John. And Nell, it looks like. Not an old one. Looks like he died in 1966. She died in 1964. But the growth around it has gotten a little wild, I will say. What a neat. It's kind of that's a cool shot right there. The tombstone just sticking up amongst the plants. Unable to read that. Got more berries here. There's a tombstone in there as well. I don't know if you could see that. There's a tombstone in there. And also a tombstone right there. Not digging in there to try to read that. And then behind me, this is kind of creepy in a way. Got a tombstone here with the carcass of a bird on top of it. How does that happen? I mean, I've seen dead birds on the ground, but on top of a tombstone? That is, I wouldn't think that's a good omen. I don't know. I don't know what that means, but we'll just leave that be. As we walk here, we can see the old well, or what remains of it. The pump. Looks like the spigot is missing. But the pump's here from the old well, and there's seems to be some kind of plaque over here. Let's see what this says. Let's see what this says. See if we can read it. In memory of Campbell Strachan, erected May 30th, 1926. So this pump and well is nearly 100 years old. That's pretty remarkable. Not in use, obviously, but that it still remains there is really remarkable. And here we have the oldest portion of the cemetery, I believe. So I was hoping to find the grave of the of Jenny Austin, who was buried 1815, the oldest interment in the cemetery, but I don't think I'm going to because a lot of these stones are not in good shape. David Breesy, 1800 to 1949. I mean, you can just see all these tombstones are just worn. You know, before there were houses here, it was just nothing but an open field, and these tombstones would just get battered by the elements. Yeah, unable to read any of these. You see the handshake there. Leonard Bump is the name on this one. Jacob Bump on that. And I want to look at, there's a couple back here that I look pretty old that I wanted to check out. Well, there's some, look at, there's some in this tree here. There's one here. Very nice monument, can't really get to it. And one buried in here. Again, very hard to get to. You imagine when these people were buried, this was just a hill with a field around it. And we got one here with a flag on it. I don't know how they can tell if this person was a soldier or in the military. I just stumbled on this newer tombstone, which is a beautiful tombstone. The angel in the photo here. It says daughter, sister, mother of Taylor Nicole, Erin Hitch, 1976 to 1998, very, very young woman. So sad. And adjacent to that is a pile of dirt. I assume there's a recent burial here. That'd be my assumption. And maybe you can get a little perspective of the hill here, and as the tombstones go up the hill. Now, a lot of these in this section are newer tombstones. Jungle's family here. I'm not going to stop and read many of these. As I said, they're newer. I'm more interested in older ones. But you can see just how big this cemetery really is. It's a very good size. There's a couple of older ones directly in front of me that I want to take a look at. Walked all the way over here and you can't really read it. Can't tell if that's an O. Oldenburg, maybe? This one here, you can see the handshake. That's about it. This looks like a child's with the lamb on the top. All right, let's take a walk back here. Oh, here's a Civil War veteran right here. Let's take a look at this one. Kingsley Boyd, 1830 to 1900. Veteran of the Civil War. You can tell this is a replacement stone, as this is a modern one. But that's very cool. And there's a couple more flags back here. So I wonder if there's more Civil War. Yeah, it looks like it. Unknown U.S. soldier. So there's a soldier buried here that was never identified. It's nice that he was able to get a proper burial and a marker. Okay, look at this, guys. Now, I've seen this now twice in this cemetery. Unknown U.S. soldier, tombstone, Civil War era. Now, I could see seeing that in a larger cemetery, but in this smaller cemetery, it really surprised me to see that. And this is the second one I've seen. It's quite interesting. What a great cemetery, guys. This cemetery, I've been past this cemetery hundreds of times, literally, and I've never stopped in here because I thought it was, I don't know, I just thought it was a small little cemetery. It is not a small little cemetery. It is a large cemetery that's just absolutely beautiful, over 200 years old, with some great monuments, and the fact that it hasn't been vandalized is absolutely remarkable. It's in great shape. So thank you very much for watching. And as always, until next time, keep exploring.